Okay, this is the second lecture of the clinical nutrition of dog and cat. We will continue in the same clinical system, but in every time I flash up the appropriate number of exam question. For that, as an introduction, we have to see the statue from Rome, Romulus and Remus, and we can see that a female, a she-wolf, was able to nurse two babies. And is it true or only the idea of a mythology? Okay, if we compare the milk composition of human and wolf, it is possible because the wolf's milk, mother milk, is much more concentrated than the human mother's milk. But returning to the liver diseases, for that we have to see and compare the milk composition of dog, cat and cattle, dairy cow, because many times cow milk is used for raise up puppies and kittens, and by this way we can provoke a deficiency. The dog's milk contains more than 20% dry matter, the cat approximately 20%, and the cattle 12% dry matter. The protein percentage in case of the dog and cat equally at about 8, and in the cattle 3.5. And the greatest difference is in energy and fat percentage. The dog's milk about 10% fat, the cat 5. From the calcium phosphate you have to see that the cat milk is very poor in these materials. But what is shockingly high in the cat, this is the lactose, about 7%. It's close to the mare's milk. And what about the copper? In the dog's milk, a medium amount, sufficient. In the cat, a lot, and in the cattle, few. This milk composition is related to the Bunge-Abderhalden rule, that the faster is the growth rate of the newborn, the more concentrated the milk is. But in micro minerals we can have difficulties. During the evolution, the dog and especially the carnivore cat have lost the capacity to utilize the copper, and they can at the same time tolerate high amount of copper, because they receive the copper and the zinc in a concentrated form in the liver of the prey animals. As an opposite, the cattle, dairy cattle, and all the herbivores developed a low copper in the milk concentration. Why? To prevent the toxicosis of the suckling animals. Therefore, if you use dairy cow milk for raising up dog, you have a slight copper deficiency, and in case of the cat you have a severe copper deficiency. And this is the case in the next slide. You can see pictures of the copper deficiency in the kitten The first sign is the graying of the hair, but it can be, if it's long-lasting and during the gestation also present, can be hairless newborn, sometimes with deformities on the legs. I also have to mention the potassium deficiency, which will disturb the neuromuscular irritability and cause a stiff walking. There is an important and interesting example of genetics and feeding interaction in case of the copper supply. This is the Wilson disease or Menkes disease. The names are used for the human counterpartner, but this is inheritable in the inbred Bedlington Terriers. What is the roots of this Wilson disease? From this point on, I will call it as a Wilson disease. This is a problem in the liver. Normally, the hepatocytes are able to bind the copper from the blood with the metallothionein protein and eliminate from the liver in form of copper and in form of ceruloplasmin. Yes, but because the free copper in the blood is toxic to the organism. But for this process, the hepatocytes are utilizing the ATP7B enzyme. A genetic failure of this enzyme, a mutation of ATP7B, will prevent this process, and the hepatocytes cannot form ceruloplasmin and cannot eliminate copper. What will happen? First, copper will accumulate in the liver. Second, as a secondary process, will remain more copper in the circulating blood. The consequence is, I will show it in this slide, that in the liver you have a jaundice, yellow degeneration. Also in the brain you have yellow coloration, and also in the cornea you have this circle, and even other organs are affected. In this case, the dietary treatment is of first importance. You have avoided the high in copper feedstuffs like the cocoa, and you may give every day some copper absorbing agent to the animal, some which counteract with the copper. In deficiency in puppies, this iodine deficiency in puppies mostly occur when the iodine supply of the gestant mother, which is low, or when there is a anti-nutritive factor, thyrostatic agents, or too much nitrate or nitrate in the mother's drinking water. The newborn and the suckling puppies will shows goiter, loss of hair, and myxoma-like material under the skin. Here you can see on the picture at your right the enlarged thyroids. This is the goiter. The vitamin A deficiency, especially in dog, may cause also alteration of the skin. You can see on this case report on this dog that this is a greasy and seborrheic parakeratosis. It means that parakeratosis, no inflammation, only a deformity of the skin cells, of the epithelial cells, and glands of the seborrheic glands are overacting and disturbed by the vitamin A deficiency. Why? Because the vitamin A is protecting also the epithelial cells of these glands. So this is the end of this subunit, and next, this is the vitamin E selenium deficiency, which is typical mostly for cat. Why? This is in the pathogenesis clear. The synonyms of the vitamin E selenium deficiency is the yellow fat disease or pan-steatitis. Yellow fat because of the coloration of the subcutaneous fat, and pan-steatitis means that pan everywhere, steatitis inflammation of the fat cells. Cat is fed on high level of polyunsaturated fatty acids, and if the level of vitamin E is not high enough, the deposition of ceroid pigment will occur in the fat tissue, and with the development of the problem, the fat cell undergo a necrosis and subsequent inflammation. Therefore, the clinical signs are first anorexia. This is very, very untypical, unspecific in case of the cat, that each problem will begin with anorexia, loss of appetite, depression, general tenderness, subcutaneous fat may be lumpy on palpation, not only lumpy but very irritable, very painful if you touch it. The treatment is the dietary correction. It means that you supply the vitamin E and perhaps selenium. You can reduce the possible peroxides intake, and you can give 20 international unit twice a day vitamin E injection. In some suggestion allowances, also a corticosteroid treatment may be useful and beneficial. You will see the clinical sign and the necropsy of this yellow fat disease or pan-steatitis. I have to tell you that the picture is from a mink, but in the cat is absolutely the same. The next deficiency is also mostly more typical in kittens and cats than in the puppies. This is the B1 or thiamine deficiency. How can we summarize the etiology of the thiamine deficiency? The feeding of raw fish, because the raw fish, many raw fish species to be correct, contains thiaminase enzyme, and this will disturb and this will damage the thiamine. Also the one-day chicken has thiaminase. The overcooking of the meat and sometimes accidental overheating of the canned pet food may deteriorate, damage the thiamine. In the veterinary record, you can read a report about epidemic thiamine deficiency of kittens owing to overheated canned pet food. The stages of the thiamine deficiency are induction stage or phase with anorexia, vomiting, and slight ataxia in the movement. In the critical phase, we have nervous signs like abnormal posture, very typical. Beside the ataxia, you have ventroflexion of head, this is the opisthotonus, and convulsions. And in the terminal stage, the kittens became weaker and weaker, and death comes. The treatment and the prognosis is excellent. By B1 injection and dietary correction, you can absolute healthy kitten receive absolute health state. Here you can see the opisthotonus or stargazing disease, not in a kitten but on a calf, but in kittens absolutely the same. The next vitamin which normally can occur as a deficiency syndrome is the pyridoxine or B6 deficiency at dogs. You know that pyridoxine is only one form of the B6. We have also pyridoxal and pyridoxamine form. And by this amine form, B6 is extremely important in the production of the blood proteins, and by this way, the maintenance of the so-called oncotic pressure of the blood. In case of pyridoxine deficiency, the oncotic pressure of the blood decreases, and therefore the plasma will enter into the abdominal cavity. You see on these two dogs, they don't lay down because the ascites will push their diaphragm and cause problems of the breathing. So this is the pyridoxine deficiency at dogs. Hopefully not too frequent. This is a pantothenic acid deficiency. The model animal is a rat. You see that the deficiency in pantothenic acid will cause graying and shivered hair coat, poor hair coat quality. This is a 12-week long experiment, and you see at the beginning rat is black, and in the middle you can see partly graying, and after 12 weeks the graying and the poor coat quality is general. We are in the group of the vitamin B, namely the next vitamin B deficiency which may cause problem with the skin is the biotin deficiency. The mink and the cat can have a similar clinical sign, severe one, and less severe we can see in case of the fox and dog. Therefore, the mink, and I may add the ferret, similarly to many syndromes, can be a model for the cat. The cause of the biotin deficiency are different. It can be a high peroxide level in the feed. The free peroxides will damage the biotin. The biotin itself is a relatively stable vitamin, but the peroxides are stronger. In the raw egg, you have a protein named avidin, and one avidin molecule can bind 4 biotin molecules and will eliminate by the feces. By this way, the raw egg feeding can cause biotin deficiency. And the third cause is that the biotin present in the cereals has a low availability, low absorption rate, and in this way the cereal-based diets also make prone the animal to the biotin deficiency. On this mink, similarly to the cat, you can see hair of loss, hair of loss of hair of the animal. This is a symmetric loss of hair, and it starts at the tailhead, and it's continue forward and backward. So this is very typical. This is a dry, scaly dermatitis with loss of hair. And the less severe form, which occurs in the fox and in the dog, this is the depigmentation. The model animal is a fox, and left you see the control, and right you see the signs of depigmentation, the white colored hair of the fox. Consideration the so-called rat tail syndrome. You see on this picture that the tail of the cat to the tail of the rat because of the loss of hair. This is caused by low thyroid activity or hypothyreosis. And but you see that the loss of hair is only on the tail and not on the body. And second disease to consider is the diabetes mellitus type 1. You can see on this cat a symmetric loss of hair, approximately the same part of the body like the biotin, but this is a exudative dermatitis, not dry and scaly dermatitis. This is also symmetric because all the loss of hair, which has a cause of endocrine problem or metabolic or mineral vitamin deficiency, will be symmetric on the both sides of the body. The next question is related to the so-called physiological and biochemical basics of special cat metabolic disorders, prevention and treatment. We have to go back to the evolution, and during the evolution the cat developed to a strict carnivorous animal. It means that during the evolution the ancestor of the felidae received and have found every time sufficient prey, and they have lost a lot of enzyme activity because they have received many minerals, vitamins, and essential nutrients from the prey animals' liver and other organs. Only to compare, in the dog lived in a less rich in prey animal territory, and therefore adapted a little bit to digest not only the meat-based diet, a little bit of carbohydrate-based diet. We can, in this way, put the question, what would happen if you continuously feed cat on dog pet food, which is absolutely tailored for the requirement of a dog? We have to see this list, what is the difference between the dog and the cat in the requirement. The cat has approximately 1/3 higher protein requirement than the dog. The amino acid requirement is also higher, and beside the 10 essential amino acids of the dog, the cat also requires arginine as an essential amino acid. The biotin is very important for the cat, and have to get from the feed stuff. The cats have lost the delta 7 activities and cannot produce arachidonic acid and other polyunsaturated fatty acids. Therefore, the arachidonic acid and other omega-6 fatty acids and the eicosapentaenic acid, this is the C22 with 4, and docosahexaenic acid, C22 with 6 double bound, these are the omega-3 fatty acids, are essential for the cat. Interestingly enough, the manganese, the ovaria of the queen are very sensitive to the manganese supply. It is only one species, the dairy cow, is similar to that. All the other females are not so sensitive. Cat requires niacin in a high amount because cannot transform the tryptophan into niacin, have lost this enzyme activity. And similarly to that, cat need not only carotene but also vitamin A itself, because have lost the carotinase activity to transform carotene into vitamin A. Therefore, returning to our question, what would happen if you feed cats on dog pet food? You will have protein and amino acid deficiency, different vitamin deficiencies, omega 6 and omega 3 deficiency, and vitamin A deficiency, one or more from this list. So, but in the real clinical practice, we will find as a specific cat deficiency syndrome the taurine deficiency. But first we have to see that what is this taurine. Taurine is a sulfur-containing compound which is a derivative from the sulfur-containing amino acids. what is the function of the taurine? Taurine can have an antioxidant effect generally. This is why it is used some energy drinks. Previously, it was a component of the Red Bull, for example. But in the cat's body, this is not the case. In the cat's body, the main role is to bind, to link to the free bile acids. In the other mammals, the free bile acids in the lumen of the small intestine are linked not only to the taurine but also to the simplest amino acid, to the glycine. By this way, they are not prone to taurine deficiency. Taurine deficiency in this way, only to add that the ferret and the mink also requires more taurine than the other mammals. But returning to the taurine deficiency can be considered at the same time as a toxic causes of free bile acids. The free bile acids without conjugation with glycine or taurine are toxic to the organism, and they will damage the proliferating tissues. This is the key where you can find the clinical signs of the taurine deficiency, which is summarized on this in this slide: retinal degeneration, poor growth, poor reproductive performance in the female, cardiomyopathy, low birth weight, and compromised immune function. And now to see these symptoms, you see on this the clinical signs of a retinal degeneration. This is occurring in the area centralis, and the lesions are progressive. You can see on the upper picture the whole upper part of the site is a little bit less yellow, a little bit white yellow. This is the lesion. And in the lower picture you can see at 8 o'clock this white lesion. Unfortunately, the visual defects are not apparent only in the late stages, and therefore the proprietor of the cat cannot recognize it in a time. What happened in the ovaria? Reproduction, the performance in breeding queens will decrease. The ovulation rate will decrease. Therefore, the litter size will be smaller, and the kittens will born with a low birth weight. This seems to be not so important, but considering that case that, for example, a pharaoh cat can have a price of many thousand euro, this is important. For a veterinarian, the last two may be more important. Most has the highest importance. Impaired immune functions means a decreased immune answer, and this is extremely important when you are making a vaccination against the respiratory diseases of the cat, which is just obligatory. With a subclinical taurine deficiency, the vaccination will not be effective. So what I would propose for you in the future practice, beside the injection, you have to give taurine supplementation, either in form of a taurine tablet or injection. The second, the last clinical sign is the dilated cardiomyopathy. The dilated cardiomyopathy is seen in the next picture. I will show you. Here you can see a control animal at your left and the dilated cardiomyopathy at your right. This is a supine position of the X-ray picture. I have good news concerning the prognosis. The disease by a continuous supplementation of the taurine can be cured, and after some weeks you can get the health state. This is what in this lateral to lateral X-ray can be seen. On the upper picture you can see the dilated cardiomyopathy, and the lower picture you can see after a 6-month continuous supplementation of taurine. And at your right you can see a picture of the pathological picture of dilated cardiomyopathy. How can you make the supplementation? But before that I have to mention that very similar dilated cardiomyopathy can be found in especially in brachycephal dogs like the boxer and others. These dogs' heart muscle requires more taurine for the metabolism than generally, and therefore they also can develop dilated cardiomyopathy. Okay, and going to the next slide, I will show you the different ways of supplementation. The taurine sources, the highest taurine concentration can be found in oyster. Of course that this is not the only cause that the oyster, possibly with champagne, is proposed to use during the honey week, because this is antioxidant, but the oyster also has a very high zinc concentration, which is beneficial for the sperm production. But returning to the taurine, all the seafood has a high concentration of taurine, and after you see on the slide in a decreasing concentration. Sea fish is high, the freshwater fish high, the viscera of mammals and birds is also very good. The meat is a medium amount, tablets are available, and what is important, then nothing in plants and other vegetables. And here is a danger that many vegan person are making a homemade diet and using mostly his or her own foods, and therefore the cat will receive a taurine deficient diet. In the developed countries you have many vegan cat food, and of course that they contain supplementation of synthetic taurine. But to put in your memory, I will show you a picture about the Giordano Bruno Square in Rome. Frutti del mare, all the mollusk, all the octopus, all the cephalopods have a high amount of taurine. But as I told you, the synthetic taurine is available. At the end of this lecture, I will give you some quiz questions. You can guess where is it. It is related to the dog dietetics mostly, and not cat. I hope you that you can see it personally, you can check it personally and not only in online. This is also not far from the campus. This is the only help I can give you, but now it's your turn to solve and write me an email, or if it's a contact lecture, you can tell me. And to finish this second lecture, I draw your attention once more that please use the veterinary nutrition and dietetics at least, not only, but at least for this dog and cat dietetics, because for your future professional life, this is maybe the most important field of interest. And I'd like to thank your precious attention. If it's a contact lecture, we will continue after 15 minutes break. You see Franz Marc excellent picture about excellent painter, the springing dog, but after that we will move to the third field of the clinical nutrition. Thanks very much.